even down to within that other moment. Because as you referenced, I was at Winston State, I was very athletic. These moments, the big stage, caused psychological fear within me that I would not perform. I told myself, whenever that moment comes back around again, I promised myself, when I was into the depression that I mentioned earlier at Elizabeth State and trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, I always promised myself, if a big moment ever happens again, I'm not backing down, and I'm going to make sure I capitalize.
So the question is this: how do thought leaders, school dropouts, former and current students find out what's next after they do or don't cross that stage? If you want to know the secrets to starting the career or business of your dreams, getting paid whatever you desire, and discovering what you do the best with the least amount of effort, then this is the right podcast for you. I'm Shawn Anthony, and this is School's Over. Now what? The podcast. Welcome back to School's Over, Now What, the podcast, and I'm your host, Shawn Anthony. Guys, if this is your very first time checking out the podcast, we truly thank you for clicking that play button. As of today, the show has been played in over 10 countries, and it all started with an idea that so many current and former students were absolutely just lost. And this idea has completely blown up to the show today that you will hear. Before we jump into the show, the question I get asked the most is, Shawn, who is up next? Guys, feel free to check out the website, www.schoolsovernowwhat.com. We update the site regularly. So as we are getting new guests, we are posting. So get excited. Guys, I want to make it really clear that this podcast will be nothing without you. So continue to leave your reviews and hit that 5-star rating. It helps us reach an even bigger audience. So I want to do a shout out each and every single week. And this week's review comes from Kasha. Kasha recently wrote on iTunes, "I think that what you do is absolutely amazing. Me, myself, being a college student, no one really gave me the tips that you are offering. You are a true inspiration. Seriously." Kasha, I appreciate you. Remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it. And that means so much for me. And that's why this podcast was created. So thank you for that. With that being said, guys, our next guest is none other than Michael Bonner. Michael stole the heart of America when he was featured on The Ellen Show, and he has impacted thousands of educators ever since. He's a second grade teacher, a premier keynote speaker, a published author of Get Up or Give Up. Guys, what I like the most about this story is he talks about capturing the moment. There's a time that will come in your life where you need to prepare for that moment. And that question you need to ask yourself is, what will you do to be ready? Guys, get ready. This episode is something you're going to want to play again and again. You haven't seen him like this. And trust, this message will resonate with you. Guys, episode 17, Capture the Moment with Michael Bonner. Welcome back to School's Over Now with the podcast, and we are here with none other than the man himself, Michael Bonner. How's it going, man?
It's good, man. How are you, dude?
Doing good, man. I'm excited for this one, man. I know you're probably one of the most busiest people out of all of my contacts. You're constantly on the road. You're constantly doing keynotes, man. So we are excited to have you here, man, to absolutely get you, stable for a little while.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that too. Stability is a good thing.
Awesome, man. So take me back to like the beginning for you. Like, where are you from?
I am from Perquimans, North Carolina, which is out of the 252. Definitely, in my opinion, the best area code in North Carolina, but I'm sure that'll be challenged by others. But, I'm from there, man, and I went to Winston State on a basketball scholarship. I was there at the City of Innovation and Arts, which is a beautiful place. And I ended up transferring to Elizabeth City State University, majoring in psychology and switching to education, man. And I've just been rolling ever since, just trying to have as much fun and maximize my life as much as possible.
Wow, man. So those are a lot of like huge different leaps that you're taking. So take me through like the thought process of, you growing up and just early childhood and, and leading you on to kind of say you wanted to go to Winston-Salem State University.
Well, I grew up in a small town, man, probably no more than 14,000 people, Perquimans, North Carolina. And it is an interesting place to grow up in. It's a lot of different opportunities, but you can also see a lot of different systematic structures that are sort of holding people back, which is why they call it the trap in a way. And I've learned through life there's a bunch of traps all over the world. Even 2 Chainz got an album called The Trap House, so it sort of gives a little bit more context to where I came from. 2-parent household, beautiful family, 4 brothers and sisters, and man, we're just a sports family. So I eventually picked up basketball eventually, and I wasn't the best, but in middle school to high school, it sort of collided because I went from like 5'7" to 6'3" from 8th grade to 9th grade.
Wow.
And my skills catch up with my height. And before I know it, man, I was looking at D1 offers, and Winston-Salem was beautiful because my official visit was in '08 when they were playing against the Aggies at the Joel Coliseum, and the environment and the energy was absolutely crazy. And I was like, yeah, I have to be here. I have to be here.
Man, and then for those of you guys that are listening, we absolutely, I think me and Michael both went to Winston State around the same exact time, man. And from what I remember watching you, man, I remember watching you kind of like in the gym, just every now and then doing a couple windmills. And I was saying, man, who is this kid? They need to get this kid in the game. I was looking at him, I was like, he's definitely blessed, because I noticed you said you went from 5'7" to like 6'3". That's never happened in my life. So awesome job, man. It's just crazy, man, that you went on and you took your talent onto this school. So you talk about how you went from Winston-Salem State, but you end up going to another school after that. So what's your thought process on going from one university to the next?
Well, during that specific time, that's when Winston-Salem was going through the transition of switching from Division I to Division II. And a lot of people do not remember that, or they have selective amnesia. But I remember when the football team was 0-1-9, or 0-10, or 2-8, whatever the case may be. And I remember as basketball players who were struggling because you have, Division I players at this lower level, and then they're going against Wake Forest with guys like James Johnson and Jeff Teague and Kent Bazemore and Iman Shumpert, people who are NBA players right now, and we're playing against them trying to compete. And to the point, man, we just weren't bringing enough revenue in regards to being inside of that division. And I signed initially because you want to compete at the highest level. And once Winston went down back to Division II, a lot of us transitioned out to other colleges and universities to try to make the best decision for our career.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially when you got your mindset, to compete with the top talent. So you're competing with all these top talented guys. I just got to ask you, like, where did you have a desire or say, okay, you know what, maybe I might pause on the basketball dreams and kind of find out who I am as a person that led you to like education as a whole and having a passion for that?
Well, when I went to Elizabeth City State University, there was something that went down as far as compliance. When I went, I was supposed to go to summer school, and nobody from the university told me. So they took actually a year of eligibility away from me, and I couldn't play that season. And it became crazy. We had to go to the court system. We had to go against the CIAA as far as, our eligibility. And, I was crushed, and I made this big move from the illustrious Winston-Salem State University to Elizabeth City State, which is a decent university. But when I went to Winston, we came in with 1,000 freshmen. Like, it was absolutely beautiful.
Nuts.
And I took it really hard, man. Like, I took that moment really hard. Definitely went down to a state of depression, and it really made me reevaluate everything about my life. Like, what do I love to do? I was enjoying majoring in psychology, but after a while, I was sort of bored with hearing the context of bipolar disorders and schizophrenia. I want to do something that really brought me to life. And every time at Winston or Elizabeth City State, we would go out and volunteer at these schools, and the kids would look up to us because we're these 6'5", gigantic African-American men who are in college and who play a sport that they love. And when I see the glow in their eyes and saw the glow in their eyes, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I could possibly do this. Maybe I can be a teacher.
And it makes sense to kind of look back and you talk about like going through some of those low moments in your life. So I just want to jump back for a second. Like, what was one of those lowest moments that you had during that time? What's your thoughts like?
It would have to be the entire period, to be honest with you, man, because oftentimes, and I see this a lot with the tons of individuals that they are very braggadocious about where they're at and their current level inside of their own circle. And one of the coolest things about going to Winston-Salem was I was going to the highest level to see if I could compete with basketball. And when you get there, you know, you're back in your hometown, you know, I'm 6'5", 185, this high flying athletic guard, and I'm the star there. But you'll find out who you really are when you get into a room and everybody there is stars, right? So
Yeah.
from Winston to Elizabeth City State was more of an area or era in my life was trying to figure out, you know, can I really compete at this level? And dealing with the fact of you have people that are older and better than you, and how are you going to elevate your game to beat them?
Yeah. And I mean, because then you go from playing around everybody with like you're a complete standout. And then now, like you said, to your point, then it's like, all right, I'm now standing out with a whole bunch of talented guys. So you have this basketball career in mind, and you're doing a very good job in what you're doing with basketball. But then all of a sudden you decided to really pursue like education and teaching. So how do you go from saying, okay, I like this, I have a desire for impacting kids, to absolutely getting to the point where you are impacting those kids?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't know it would be to this magnitude. I just went in thinking, oh, you know, I make $400 for the month working at Hibbett Sports in college. They start out at $30,500 for beginning teachers. Oh, it's lit. I'm gonna have enough money. I'll be fine. I'll live comfortably. But now as I'm older and a businessman, I'm like, that is literally no money whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
So, as I went into education, man, I was a little blindsided, because you begin to see what's really going on with children, the things they're dealing with, the trauma, you know, the inequity inside of education. And it became really hard to the point that I ended up really wanting to quit teaching. I was like, man, I'm done with this. These kids are throwing chairs and cussing at you and swinging. The parents can be disrespectful at times. Some parents can be disrespectful at times. Man, I don't know if I really want to do this. When I left the job fair, actually, it's funny, people don't know this, but when the job fair came to Elizabeth City State University, I knew I was going to teach in Greenville. But people actually set my interview up at the school that I'm at right now. So all my other friends had a chance to visit other schools and interview there, but they set my interview up at South Greenville Elementary because I'm an African American male and because there's only 2% of us in the education field. That my school is mainly African American. So once I understood that, it became a level of frustration for me. And I'm like, I don't really know if I want to do this anymore.
So you get back in the Greenville and you got a bunch of kids, and it sounds like they were giving you a hard time. For those people that are listening right now, starting off in education, like how do you get these kids to want to listen to you?
In college day, in pre-service arena, they fill you up tons of content and knowledge. And all that is beautiful. I think you should definitely know your content and the material that you're about to go into the work profession and teach. But one of the aspects that our culture and our society struggles with is relationships. Not only just relationships amongst our own people, relationships across all cultures. And one of the things that we cannot necessarily determine all the time is where we're actually want to teach at. So even though I came from a similar neighborhood, I still cannot identify with my children. And the moment I began to sit down and look at them as human beings and build that relationship with them, carve through the trauma and the concrete around their heart, that's when I began to make a bigger impact with my kids. And that's why I always tell people, the students really don't care, man, how much certifications you have, how many licenses you have, or how you have this master's degree from Columbia, wherever you come from. They're not really going to care until they know that you are actually invested into their entire being, and then they will perform for you.
Man, that makes so much sense, man. I'm glad you kind of brought that point to life. I know one of my earliest moments just going through like early education, I was in like second grade. I still remember the teacher. Her name was Miss Weeks. Shout out to Miss Weeks if you're listening all the way out to Bivin Elementary. But she was one of those teachers that, you know, that made that natural relationship and cared about my well-being, cared about whether or not I had came to school okay and what my thoughts were throughout the entire day. And it sounds like you made that connection with your kids. So you make this connection with them, right? And next thing you know, you do something really creative, and you put out a video to the world. Tell us a little bit about that and what happened.
Well, I was teaching this standard, man. It's just answering basically comprehension questions like who is the story about, where did the story take place? And I was teaching to my kids, and I gave them a test, and only 2 out of the 20 kids passed the test, man.
God.
And I was like, oh Lord, what is this, right?
Yeah.
My boss steps in there like, you know, Michael, whenever 80% of your class fails the assessment, it's not the students, it's you. And that's happening all across America. There's a lot of teachers and people pointing at children saying they can't learn, but in reality, it's the teacher's fault. So I went back to the drawing board because I said, I have to find something that they love. I have to look into the relationships and things I've been building with them. And during that current time, OT Genesis just released Push It.
Yeah.
Push it. And everybody's like, hey, they're loving it. And I used to play the instrumental in class. And they used to react in a very strong way and get back to work. And I'm like, I'm going to write some lyrics to this for the actual content that I'm teaching. And with that, man, I came to him and said, hey, if you guys pass this test, the next time I give it to you, I'm going to make sure that I shoot you a music video. And it was like, bet, we got you. This is nothing. They started getting so determined about it. I'm like, okay. Man, I retaught that lesson to them in a different way because you shouldn't reteach it the same way if they didn't pass the first time. And man, 14 out of those 20 kids passed, man. I ended up shooting them a video. I posted the video on a Friday evening before we went out for some food and drinks with my coworkers. I posted to Instagram and Facebook. I did not tag Ellen. I did not tag any major news outlet. I just put it out there. And man, that thing just took off.
It's crazy.
Within an hour, I had 1,000 shares.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
I mean, like when you look at like a video like that, I mean, just the thought of looking at your students and saying, yo, only 2 of y'all are actually passing right now, and taking that self-reflection at yourself and, looking at that man in the mirror. I think they had that thought process and figuring out, you know what, I'm going to get them hyped up on something they like. I mean, huge kudos to that. So you go out here and you make this video that goes completely viral. What happens next?
Of course, a bunch of news stations begin to pick it up, and we're coming to the school, hanging out. Everybody's excited, but it's a really cool deal, but it's nothing too crazy. And then sort of around that October, man, we get a phone call. Somebody's like, hey, we need you to come to the office right now. This is during lunchtime. I'm like, I can't leave my kids. Like, I'll be there, but I just can't leave my kids. So I get all my kids in the line, and we walk down to the office together. And my principal and them are just standing there in the front with the secretary, just smirking. And they're like, somebody's on the phone for you. And I say, well, is it a parent? Because I don't really want to deal, with that right now. Like, I have a lot I got to take care of. They wouldn't say nothing. I picked up the phone, and it's my sweetheart friend. Her name is Courtney. She said, hey, Michael, this is Courtney Garcia calling from the Ellen Show. And ever since then, it's been a complete wrap. The unique thing about that is, though, even though I didn't plan for the opportunity to happen, I didn't go on to the Ellen Show until January.
Oh, wow.
So there's this 3-month pause where we didn't know what was happening. So everybody else is excited around you, but you don't know what's going to happen within that moment. So it really showed me you can't really focus on big moments or necessarily going viral. The main thing that you should always focus on is producing results and getting the job done. Because that's one thing people cannot argue against.
Man, that's knowledge, man. So you go a 3-month gap, man. I know me personally, like if I get a call from Ellen and they tell me, yo, all right, we like what you're doing, a 3-month gap might seem like a long time. Did those 3 months seem like the longest time ever?
Definitely. It definitely did, because everybody in the school is aware that Ellen called. My parents are aware that Ellen called. My students are aware. And I wasn't even the person that actually watched her show all the time, because we had to stay after school with the meetings. I would end up missing it. But I was excited about it. But I remember going for a run at EBA called in Greenville, North Carolina, on their track. And I remember just praying to God and telling him, you know what, I'm not going to be concerned if they call back or not. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm just going to stay focused and continue to work my tail off and give my students the best academic experience they can possibly have.
Man, so you're impacting all these students, and you get on Ellen, right? Let's fast forward here. The 3 months goes by, and you're live on the show. What was your first thought when you finally made it to that show?
I didn't know I was going to be on the show. What they did was they said that they were coming to the school to film our school, to hang out with us, and then they were inviting me to the show as a thank you.
Wow.
I applied to LA for the first week in January 2017, having a good time, relaxing. We just got off Christmas break. And the funny thing about that moment is when I went to Raleigh to fly to the airport that day, there was a huge snowstorm. So my car got stuck in my sister's cul-de-sac in her neighborhood. So I had to walk like a mile and a half just to get to the hotel, just to get to the airport, because the snow and the ice was everywhere. So we get to the show there. I'm there in LA, man, and we're relaxing, and I'm hanging out with people in a room, and they're saying how they're teachers, and come to find out they weren't teachers, they were actually actors. And I actually go down to the stage, and they say, hey, go sit up there, hang out with those people. And I sat there, and man, right before the last commercial break, Ellen sort of looked at me and looked away with like a 3-second glance. And I just continued, I sort of rubbed it off and kept on laughing, enjoying the crowd, the music, and Twitch, man. And right after that, just like the YouTube video says, we have a special teacher here who does not know he's here. Welcome, Michael Bonner, and that's what happened.
So if you're listening, ladies and gentlemen, when those moments happen live on TV and especially on Ellen, they are real. So,
yeah, they are definitely real. They are masterminds at tricking people because they want your natural reaction. And that's why if you look at the video, I'm constantly saying, wow, because they got me. Because I'm an analytical thinker. Normally I can figure stuff out. They got me really good.
Hey guys, so let me take a guess. You're enjoying the show. And if that's right, please make sure that you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast right now and tag me at Shawn R. Anthony _. I promise you this is going to help in amazing ways. And while you're at it, hit the 5-star rating and subscribe. With that being said, guys, let's get back to the show. Man, that's crazy. So, all right, you go from the audience, take us there. Like you go from the audience and now you absolutely, you're on the couch, right? So you're on the couch and you look at Ellen face to face. Like, what are you thinking at that moment?
My mind is blown. So I have a gift of talking. Like, I feel like God has given me that gift. So off that moment, I was operating completely out of adrenaline and out of just trying to not show any anxiety or nerves at all. Right. So when it was the commercial, I sat back. She's like, "You want some water?" I'm like, "Yeah." And we started talking, and I had to like pull myself back together, and the cameras come back on again. I had to hop back into my talking mode. You don't want to fumble up on national television.
Certainly not.
That's what happened, man. And it was just a big testament to me, And never be prepared. You never know when your moment's going to happen. Sometimes it just comes out of nowhere. Either you're gonna man up and deal with it, or you're gonna run away from the moment.
It's so dope, man. And I think you give a lot of credit to where the credit should be due to. I mean, you give a lot of credit to God preparing you for that moment and kind of humbling you. And at the same time, can saying you can make it through this. So you got the water, you turn it all the way up. And then the world finally gets to know who you are. And they finally get the reaction to seeing what you have done for so many kids. But I think the coolest thing about just teaching in general is if you can impact that one child, you can impact that family. And not only that, but if your story gets platformed in the way that your story has, you now impact teachers who then go back and impact more students who then go back to impact more families, man. So that's just dope.
Yeah, I never thought about it. Like, I've been thinking about it more so now that I've been speaking, because I've probably spoken to over 30,000 teachers alone this year. And if you say every teacher has 30 students, that's almost like 900,000 students. That if I would have said something to the teacher that triggered them or planted some type of seed, it can possibly affect the students, which in return, like you said, which I haven't thought about, actually affects the family, man. And I'm always constantly blown away by it. Even down to within that other moment, because as you referenced, I was at Winston State, I was very athletic, but the moment, the big stage, caused psychological fear within me that I would not perform. So I always told myself, whenever that moment comes back around again, I promised myself, when I was going through the depression that I mentioned earlier at Liberty State and trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, I always promised myself, if a big moment ever happens again, I'm not backing down, and I'm going to make sure I capitalize.
Man. And capitalize you did, man. So take me here, right? Ellen's over. Right. It's a wrap. The whole world knows it. It's all over the place. And for those of the listeners that's listening, especially like all of my WSSU family, all of that alumni that's listening right now, everybody knows your phone has to be going off the hook. You get back down to Greenville and you get back down to North Carolina. What is going on now?
Oh, it's bananas. My phone was off when the show was airing. My phone was off, and she actually posted a sneak peek the night before. So I woke up with 32 text messages, right? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get out there, and I went to see the actual episode on Ellen too. But then when I actually flew back home, man, and I landed, because I was telling my boys, Jonathan Jackson, Des Vaughn, Cornell, Keith Berg, Eric, all of them, I sent them a screenshot of my phone, and when I landed, I had like 186 text messages, like 10 missed voicemails, and it was absolutely crazy, right?
Yeah.
But I was sort of glad, because going through that moment, transition from Winston to Elizabeth City, it sort of prepped me for that. Because when you go through dark seasons, sometimes you seem alone. And it's because you are. And I'm learning sometimes God strategically, or situations strategically, put us alone so we can become the person that we need to be. So when all those people were rushing in, it was just absolutely crazy, man. But I was able to approach it from a healthy mind state.
Yeah, man. And it also goes to show you, like, if you stay patient And sometimes in life, you kind of got to go through a process. And I feel like listening to your story, you went through like a process and you stayed patient and you started to trust and believe that, hey, when my time comes, I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to be ready. And I think by having that patience and going through that process, that definitely will just have you in that moment and in that light, allowing for you to shine. So here you are, you're back in North Carolina, Ellen, everything is going crazy. And for those people who aren't aware, you not only was on Ellen once, you was on Ellen twice.
Right. I went to Ellen twice. So like right after the first episode, NBC Nightly News, Lester Holt, they came through, everybody rushed in, we just having a good time. School's getting positive exposure now because of what they were normally stigmatized as. And I'm in math one day and she calls up like, we want to take you and all your kids back to Ellen. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, we want to invite your whole class back to the Ellen show. And then the plane tickets for my entire class were $18,500 plus.
That's a car.
That's just plain. And we went, that's a car. That's a fourth of somebody's student loans that they can knock out.
Yeah.
Some of them is all of it, right?
Yeah.
And we stayed there for an entire week, Universal Studios, all those different types of things. And we got there and I found out they wanted to actually remix the actual song that we did, the video. And we got there, man, and they had Big Shawn, Ice Cube, Migos, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Ty Dolla $ign.
Whoa.
The coolest remix to a song I've ever seen in my life. And it's on YouTube now. And my kids were going crazy, and they deserved that moment because for 1 week, they were able to live without any care at all. Everything was paid for. Every experience was paid for. They had the time of their life. The ultimate field trip.
Man, I mean, it exposes them to life outside of what their current surroundings are. And I think that's just so dope, man, that you have, like, you go to LA and now you're surrounded not just by Ellen, you're surrounded by guys who they obviously have heard before. They obviously know something about their music that gets them excited. And now you bring them into it. So I appreciate you for mentioning that. We're definitely going to put that in the show notes for those of you that are wondering, what does that video look like? Migos, Big Shawn, Ice Cube, and others. I mean, that's rare, man.
Yeah. It was pretty cool, man. It was pretty cool. And every day I wake up, I'm always in a constant state of gratitude, a constant state, a mindset of being grateful, because what people need to understand is that all these moments are not only they fleeting, but they can go away at any moment. There can be another guy going on a TV show tomorrow and the same situation happens. So I dare not be braggadocious about the situation. In fact, I approach it from the attitude of how can I use the platform that God has given me to make sure that I'm effective in making a legacy change. I love how one of my friends, Jonathan, puts it, legacy over likes. We're in a generation now where everybody wants multiple of thousands of social media followers and such. But at the end of the day, none of that really matters.
Yeah, none.
What matters is your because I have 25,000 followers, which is great. We talk about making an impact. But I would rather have 25,000 followers who support you and are dedicated than 1 million followers and only 10,000 of those million actually support you and actually care about the things you're trying to do throughout the society.
Yeah, man. It's all about creating, not only just creating that legacy, but you think about what people do it for. And I'm a firm believer in like hustling for your last name and not your first name. And leaving people on that type of, that type of mindset of saying, you know what, this is what they're doing and this is what they're doing it for. And speaking of like just talking about legacy, you take the platform of Ellen, right? And then you go on and now you're at the keynote after keynote after keynote. So what are some of those gems? Like what's some of that knowledge that you're giving those people at those keynotes?
Well, I didn't even plan on to be a speaker. That's funny how that sort of worked out as well. It's funny how that worked out as well. But honestly, man, throughout the education system, we have the potential to really break the chains of poverty, break the chains of ignorance, break the chains of lack of empathy and understanding that exists within our current society. And we can do that through education. But there's a lot of things that happen inside the education system that are not fair. For example, there's an article that was published by the NAACP Defense Fund that talks about how black students are punished more severely than white students. And it's not calling teachers racist, but it's based on something called implicit bias, which means how media and our culture and our environment shapes the way we think. So right now inside of education, there's the student population for African American students is at 17% for the entire population. But they're suspended at a 42% rate. So it's almost triple. African American student in preschool is 3.8 times more likely to be suspended than their white counterpart or any other student. So there's a lot of issues that are going on, not only with how we treat our students, but what we're actually teaching them. There's still teachers that teach the content that Christopher Columbus discovered America. There's still teachers that believe in having all students sit down and do a worksheet for 90 minutes and expect them to actually, be engaged. So I go around, man, speaking on inequity. I go around speaking on innovation. I go around speaking on how can we encourage more teachers to come into the profession, because 80% of the profession is Caucasian teachers, and you have Hispanic at 9%, African American at 7%, and Asian at 2%. And studies are showing that when a student can identify with their teacher, if they can identify with the person in the classroom, they're more likely to learn from them. So I'm just basically honestly going around calling out the things that people don't want to talk about. And I do it in such a graceful way, because we need to have those important conversations. Because if we don't have those important conversations, 30 years from now, our education system will look the same. And because of selective amnesia that America likes to have, we'll be questioning why is it still the same.
Man, so you talk about I appreciate you for giving us all those statistics as well. So you talk about just as how the rate it is for the African American, student to be, likely suspended. And we talk about, right. I think you just gave us, I think it was about 7%, being African American teachers out there. So what is some of the advice? How can they become more relatable to such a targeted market right now in the world?
I honestly was trying to figure that out myself, because I'm on Governor Cooper's teacher advisory board and connect to a lot of different people as well. And I'm starting to think about, man, how can I start going to HBCUs and figuring out how can we draw, more people of color into the profession of education, specifically athletes, though, because I remember distinctly tons of athletes majoring in majors or taking up studies in things that they're just doing because they think they're going to make it to the league.
Exactly.
But we don't really fully understand how difficult it is to make it to the league. So I've been trying to brainstorm ways, man, to actually bring more people, into the fold. In certain areas, it is not the most highest paying job. You have situations and things that you deal with. But if you talk about making a huge difference and a true impact upon our generation, there's no greater profession to do that than through education.
I mean, simply put, man, and there it is, in a nutshell. And I think everybody says, oh, I'm going to the league, I'm going to NBA, I'm going to the NFL. But there's also very low statistics on, those people actually going. So, I mean, without a doubt, man, and it makes so much sense.
It's like 1.9%. In my book, I think I put it's 1.9% of college athletes that actually make it to the NBA. 1.9% out of I think almost 100,000. And then you also have the NFL is even lower. So, it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
But it must be addressed.
Yeah, man. And I'm glad you brought that up too. Let's talk about the book. So people that are trying to find out more about Michael Bonner, tell us a little bit about this book and where did you get the idea of writing? It's blown off shelves.
Well, yeah. Well, writing was easy to me because I was a psychology major, and every psychology major knows the APA format is our best friend. But as I came off the Ellen show, I've noticed there's a trend in education where people tend to write on very cute topics that, sort of gets along and goes along with everybody, and is easier to sell. But with my concept, I just wanted to be honest, and I wanted to tell my truth, and I wanted to be transparent so people can actually gain something from it. I'm learning the older I become, I'm trying to be a man of substance and a man that just everybody, doesn't really take serious, or a person that people don't really fully understand. So I want to actually give people something whenever they come to me or come to my platform. And within the book, I talk about my own educational experience. You're from Charlotte, right, Shawn?
Now I'm from Rocky Mount, 252 all the way.
Rocky Mount. So you already know how it is going through.
Oh, of course.
Right. So
we didn't hear about Michael. We didn't hear about college, man, till probably about 11th grade. It was already almost a wrap.
Man, you should. When folks read, listen now. Shawn just said he didn't hear about college until 11th grade, so it was a wrap. Wait till you guys check out the first chapter of my book as I detail how we heard about college and scholarships. And me and Shawn are from two totally different towns in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And that's what I go through, man. I talk about that. I talk about going into education. I talk about letting go of basketball. And I talk about different things that I hold on to keep me inside of education. And it's giving people the inspiration. The book is called Get Up or Give Up, How I almost gave up on teaching, and it's been phenomenal. I've gotten great feedback. And now I'm working on a new project now that I plan on shutting everything down with.
Man, there has to be, I like it when people are constantly evolving and not like, becoming stagnant. And the good thing about, just you in general, I feel like you're always thinking like the next move.
Yeah. It's legacy minded. You have to be determined. I'm learning now the fluidity of thinking about the next move while still executing today, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You got to be present in the moment.
I'm focused about thinking about where I'm going to be 5 or 10 years from now, and how I'm not trying to be marginalized with where I'm at. But at the same time, in this current moment, I'm thinking out how can I, teach my students so their scores skyrocket? How can I, address the crowd at a keynote speech to make sure they actually walk away with something? So yeah, man, I dig it. I get it.
Certainly, man. So here's the question we ask every single person that's been on this podcast. What advice do you have for those former, those current, or either those people that might have dropped out? Like, what advice do you have for those students that are asking themselves the question, school's over, now what?
I think it comes down to, that's a beautiful question to ask yourself. Self-reflection is probably one of the most powerful tools that we'll ever have access to. It's also referred to as metacognition in psychology, thinking about how one thinks, right? So
yeah.
If you are that person right now, you have the amazing opportunity to look at your situation and figure out, what do I love? What am I passionate about? If you don't know, this is the perfect time to go out and travel, experience, work to find out and connect and network with people to see what makes you happy. What do you stay up at night thinking about? What do you dream about? And I think once individuals actually do that, they will begin to see a light sort of go off inside of them. If you know what your passion and stuff is, you better be hitting the ground running every single day. I am grateful for the platform that I have, but there are thousands of other teachers who are speakers who are out here trying to make an impact and trying to do the best to provide for their family and for their students. So even if you know your passion, you can't be stagnant within your purpose. You have to get up and move it. So if you are at that crossroads, take the time to evaluate where you're trying to go and what are you trying to do. And once you figure that out, hit the ground running and work,
man,
work. Everything looks beautiful on social media. You go on my page right now, there's beautiful professional pictures, and you see my kids smiling, and you see the beautiful videography that is done by my friend Jared with the things going on in my classroom and the parties I'm throwing for the kids and the sponsorships and things that I have. But what people do not see, and Shawn, is how much I'm in the air.
Yeah.
How many connecting flights I have to catch, how many hours I have to drive after I land, how I have to worry about delays, how I have to catch red eyes from California back to North Carolina so I can teach and be in school the next day. So once you figure out your passion, there's a work aspect that comes along with it if you're truly trying to make an impact. If you want to be mediocre, you can just coast and just be average. But if you want to be spectacular and build a legacy, you find your passion identified and work your butt off of it.
Man, Michael, we appreciate you, man. You came through, you delivered with nothing but knowledge as expected. So for those people that are trying to find out more about Michael Bonner, where can they find you? Just give the people all your info.
Super easy, man. You can find my social media tag is the same everywhere. It's Michael Bonner, BONNER _ on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's all the same. YouTube. If you're looking for the book, you can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and you can type in Michael Bonner and it will shoot the book up right to you. It's also available digitally. And I definitely invite you to follow me so we can connect, collaborate. And I definitely have something amazing dropping by the end of the year. So I definitely want you to stay tuned for that. I know people are going to love it.
Perfect. Guys, always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it. Yo, what you think? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want to know what you learned. So if you wouldn't mind, would you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast on your phone right now? Upload to your Instagram stories, tag me at Shawn R. Anthony _, and then let me know in that Instagram story what is one thing that you learned. I love hearing from you, my listeners, thought leaders, former or current students all around the world. Let me know. And while you're doing this, go inside the podcast app, subscribe, leave a 5-star review and a 5-star rating. Again, this helps us reach more people. And if you want to be a part of this mission, helping us change the world one person at a time, it makes a massive difference by you leaving a review. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week. And remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get